Welcome to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk, a show about ancient coins from the viewpoint of a seasoned professional with nearly 30 years' experience. Here's Aaron Berk and Mike Nodelman on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
And the sound of that tone, whatever the heck it is, means it is time once again for the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. I am Mike Nodelman.
I'm Aaron Berk.
And on today's show, Happy New Year. This is January 1st, 2025, and we have our year in review show. We're going to cover some stuff that we think was interesting over the last year. We're going to talk about some stuff that's coming up over the next couple of weeks. And as always, there will be a little nugget for you seeking a pearl of wisdom. Go ahead, Aaron.
So first off, Happy New Year's, Mike.
Happy New Year, bud.
If I'm going to do any show with anyone on New Year's Day, it's going to be you. So, and all of you.
Yeah.
So, depending on when you're listening to this, of course. So no review yet because we've got the New York International coming up in a couple weeks, and so we don't have any results yet. But there are a lot more auctions to talk about at the New York International that are coming up. And the first is going to be the stack sale, which is going to only have 164 ancient coins. I believe it is going to be on that Friday, if I'm not mistaken, after the show. At the hotel. And if any of you guys are coming to the New York International, it's pretty one-stop shopping at the hotel. Just check the NY Inc. website. I believe it's nyinc.info. And it'll give you all of the things that are happening during that entire week. But the auction room is just off the lobby. And in the mezzanine and in some of the halls upstairs on second floors where all the show takes place, as well as all the viewing for the different auction houses that are running auctions that week. So no place to go, all indoors, especially when it's nippy outside.
Well, yeah, in January, you really don't want to do a lot of outside in New York.
That's right. So I thought, there's some interesting coins in here. Again, Stacks kind of runs their sales like Heritage, where everything is slabbed. And so you're going to get, again, a lot of gold and silver types that hopefully can get into high designated holders for the most part. But I have a feeling that there's a better chance to get a bargain in a stack sale than there would be in a Heritage sale. So let's talk about a couple possible sleepers that may be interesting to some of you collectors out there. So the first one's going to be lot 31017.
We'll see if you can turn them into not sleepers. If you jinx them and run the numbers up on them.
So the first is going to be Selenis Tetradrachm that were produced in Sicily during 455 to 409 BC. This one's a very popular type. It obviously has some, surface issues, but not terrible by any means. They claim it has some light scuffs, but, it's not so bad, really. I would say the obverse is quite nice on this, very well centered. The reverse a little bit off, not very strong. But just depends on.
I think the reverse is where they have all the complaints about surfaces.
Probably.
The obverse is pretty decent.
Yep. Like the starting price is very, very, very cheap. It already has the current bid of $600. It looks like very, very inexpensive for this type. I would think you could pick this thing up for $2,500 or less, if possible. And so definitely one to take a look at. And any of these 164 coins, take a look at them. There's definitely some sleepers out there. You don't actually have to bid during the auction. You can just leave a bid. You don't have to sit there and wait for it to happen.
Which, honestly, with auction theory, if I'm going to call it that, is the best thing to do. It's like figure out what you want to spend on it, what you think your top dollar is, bid it and walk away.
Yeah, and I would say even bid it plus add one. because you don't want to lose it for exactly what you thought you wanted to get it for. You
Fair
want
enough.
to just go one extra bid, so somebody else has to beat you by that extra bid, so you don't feel too bad if you lose it. So the next lot is going to be number 31021. Obviously, Syracuse Decadrachm, always a very, very, very popular type. This one's not so nice, but this is an opportunity, guys, for somebody to pick up a Decadrachm for probably, hopefully, less than $20,000. And these days, most Decadrachms are, nice ones are going for 30 to 40,000. Great ones are going for 100,000 plus. And so this is an opportunity to pick one up that's not going to break the bank. It's still obviously very expensive for most of us, but if you've ever wanted to own a Decadrachm, it's an opportunity.
Well, I was going to say, it's really not even that bad.
It's not. I would say the obverse is quite nice. The quadriga surfaces look good. The reverse on this is really where the problems are. It could have been that it was over cleaned, is my guess. And so it doesn't have a lot of that natural surface that the obverse has.
Yeah.
And so, somebody recently asked me, they wanted to only buy mint state coins and they wanted a Decadrachm. And I said, this is where really when it comes down to buying ancient coins, it's really not about just grade. You can say that you want to buy mint state coins, but it's really should be more of a classification of buying the best coin you can get for the money. And if money is no object, then fine. But most Decadrachms don't come mint state. Most of them come EF or AU. They don't always come mint state. And so with a Decadrachm, you want a coin that is well centered. If it has a signature of Euonytos or Chemo, that's great. If it doesn't, obviously the price will be less. And one that doesn't have die rust.
Well, okay. And then here's this thought is, you're asking for something that's 2,500 years old and you want it to be mint state.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, maybe it's just my naivete or my inexperience, but as a numismatist looking at it, I think that reverse was probably really heavily corroded in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just the only thing they could do to take it off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are also large coins, so it's tough to get one that's perfect. And I've only noticed a few that have come up mint state. We'll talk about one later in the show, and it brought I think $750,000. So if you want to wait for that $1 million coin to come back up, which may only come up once every 5 to 10 years, then great. But if you just want a fantastic Decadrachm, you don't need one that's mint state. You need one that has all of the attributes I just mentioned, and it's still going to be a wow coin. Yeah. And that's what people, when they say I only want to buy mint state coins, they want coins that are wow.
Yes.
Right. So with ancients, it's not just about grade. And this is where people get confused when it comes to slabbing versus non-slabbing, is that even in slabbing, and we've talked about this before, they will change their mind on what they think the grade is. So if, for instance, they were being looser in their grading standards 5 years ago, and you bought a coin that was mint state star, and then the coin got cracked out because somebody didn't like it in the slab, they didn't touch it because, yes, they could have messed with it. But if it was a great coin,
theoretically,
most people who crack them out aren't messing with them. So they just don't like them in the holders. It gets resubmitted, and now NGC says, well, we're tightening our standards. And so now that grade becomes maybe just mint state, maybe becomes AU and no star. And so are you saying now that coin is a lesser coin because their opinion changed slightly? So to me, the coin hasn't changed any. It's still the same.
Because what it says to me is that the grading service has changed.
And that happens in US coins all the time. Yeah. And so this is why that's why there's a third grading service for CAC. That's why you have the green CAC stickers, why that started. That's why you have people like Mike Prince and Mike Nottleman and Russ who look at coins every day in slabs and decide whether that's really is the proper grade for the coin that's in the holder, because most of the time it's not. And so it's, to me, the coin hasn't changed at all. And so to say, well, I bought that coin because it was just mint state, that's not why you buy an ancient coin. You buy the coin for the eye appeal, number one. And then the rarity, then pedigree, historical value, all of those things mean something. Well, if you're buying a coin from Crete that are mostly all overstruck and come with really crappy dies, you will never get one that's mint state ever. And so
they just don't exist.
They don't exist. So does that mean that you can't buy a fantastic coin from Crete? No, absolutely not. It means that you're going to get a fantastic coin for what they produced during that period. And that might be the mint state style for that city. EF might be,
or it just might be as good as it gets. So,
well, my point is VF might be their mint state.
Yeah.
For that city. And so,
I think what people are doing there is they're falling into a trap that people fall into in US all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's that they're buying the slab, they're buying the plastic, and it's like you never, ever, ever, almost never, ever, ever buy the plastic. You're
Mm-hmm.
always buying the coin. You're always
Mm-hmm.
evaluating the coin to see, okay, so it says MS63, but do I like it?
Right, exactly. What I find funny on this particular decadrachm, they say at the bottom, they say a rare and highly important specimen.
Well, of course. It's in their auction.
What a BS statement that was.
Well, important to whom?
Well, I mean, everybody knows that decadrachms aren't rare. I mean, they're almost in every single major auction that comes up.
It is the Morgan dollar of the...
Well, I wouldn't say it's Morgan dollar, but it was highly collectible in ancient times, and there are tons of them out there. Yeah. So to say that it's rare is kind of silly. Now, what I've always said is people who are serious about collecting Greek coins should all have a decadrachm of Syracuse, if they can afford it, in their collection, because it is an important coin to have in your collection. It is the type, because most of them, there's so many of them out there, that there should be one available at your price range, hopefully. So, and to have one omitted from your collection, if you say you collect Greek coins, is kind of a travesty. Now, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. I get that. I understand that.
I was going to say.
But I've sold decadrachms for under $10,000. So again, that's a lot of money. I get it. But if you're a serious collector and you're buying $5,000 and $10,000 and $20,000 coins, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a decadrachm.
No, that's collection. True. If it's within your budget, you should have one.
If your budget is $1,000, I totally get it, and that's completely reasonable not to have a decadrachm. Right. But for anybody who seriously and has the means, they should have a decadrachm in their collection. That's just a no-brainer. But to say it has to be mid-state is, that's somebody who doesn't understand ancient coins. So, and that's just a learning curve that has to be, that from people, look, and you can say, well, every coin I've got is mid-state because the grading service said so. I mean, to me, that's it's very subjective.
It's not a false statement.
No, it's not a false statement, and it's probably a nice coin, but
it's guided, but it's not a false statement.
Right. And it'll probably be a nice coin. But look, I've held tons of EF coins that I've paid for clients $100,000+ for that are fantastic coins. And so that will blow any mint state coin that's less rare out of the water. So you have to understand, if you're trying to build an important collection, doing it just by grade is kind of short-sighted. You need to look at why you're collecting, and if you want to have wow coins, it has to be for specific cities in whatever grade possible at the highest grade you can get, or the type that is available. Because maybe there's only one of one for that city. Who knows? Or that type. So it's that's why I take every coin on a coin by coin basis, and I look at everything. And grade is the last thing I look at.
Oh,
so, and we all have grading scales in our head, right? So, I mean, they graded this one EF. Well, I would have probably called the obverse EF and the reverse VF. I wouldn't have called the reverse VF.
You might even get away calling this obverse AU though.
You could. I don't know what's going on at the top there. That might be just the glare from the plastic.
It looks like
at
just
11 o'clock.
a bad picture, because if we go to this other picture of the slab,
yeah, so that's
you
just
see it better, but it's just glare.
Yeah, it might be just the glare there. So, but again, like that's, to me, the reverse of this is not. I mean, if you're calling it 2 out of 5, well, how can you call it an EF throughout? If it's only a 2 out of 5 for surfaces, and they're calling it 2 out of 5 for the reverse. And so, to me, this is where NGC doesn't do this. I don't believe they do 2-sided grades. Most of us, like at Harlan Berk and other companies, we do 2-sided grades. We'll say EF over VF. So, but I don't believe you do that in US coins, right?
No, you don't do it at all.
Yeah.
The reverse can only hurt the grade. It cannot help it. So the coin is primarily graded on the obverse.
So I would have, to me, this is where NGC is not, they're not in the ballpark when it comes to how people grade ancient coins. We grade them one for the obverse and one for the reverse. You could have the same grade for both obverse and reverse, and this is what this is telling me. But most of us give two grades. We give, especially if they're drastically different, like this coin is. So, because that's not an EF reverse by any means. Anyway, it's still a good coin for the price, and so that was the whole point of that.
It is not a super nice decadrachm. That's kind of the whole point.
Correct. But it's a great obverse, though. Great obverse. Yeah. So, next coin is going to be 31084,
and I'm going to stop you before you even get into this, because Mike just had an epiphany. He just had a moment where he realized something about this type of coinage and how smart the people are that minted this. The InQs on the back of these is directly opposite the device on the obverse.
Yeah.
So it helps with strike.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it helps.
You look at it and you're like, well, wow, they had, this technology to make this really nice. Why did they, do this like really just kind of crude looking indentation? Well, that's why. It's because it helped with the strike.
Yeah, it held it in place.
I don't know. Maybe I should feel stupid for not realizing that up until now, but there you go.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of early coins will have incuses for that reason.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it was done. This is one of the most popular coins to collect because it's one of the first coins that people will think about when they're collecting ancients as the beginning of coinage. These have gone up quite a bit because this is one area where the raw area has been affected by the slabbing area, because a lot of people are buying these, putting them in slabs, and if they get a high designation, they're going for strong money because they're being highly collected by the slabbing market. And so what you want with this one is a beautiful sun ray on the nose of the lion. And there's some debate on what that means. And really what it comes down to, some of the things I've read, is that the lion, one, it represents the strength and power of the emperor or the king at the time. But it was also a personification of the sun itself, because it was believed that lions could look directly into the sun. And the zodiac sign for Leo was assigned during the hottest part of the year, from July to August.
Yep.
And so appropriately here, we're showing the lion's head depicted on with the shining sun above it. And then later they lose some of the sun rays and it just becomes like a wart on the end of the nose.
Yeah, I was gonna say this one kind of almost looks like a tumor.
Right. And there was a theory also that the kings at the time, a line of kings during this period, had a wart on on their nose, and that was what they were depicting. I'm going to go with the sun. I think that sounds better than
I think you're probably closer on that one. Celebration of nose warts.
Right. So again, These can come in high grade, but we'll look later in best of 2024 where some of these can really get out of hand price range. But, you know, these used to sell back in the day for, you know, between $1,000 and $1,500, maybe up to $1,800. Now they're going for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, up to $6,000, and then going crazy after that, depending if somebody decides to put a star on it or not. But again, what you want here is you really want a nice roaring lion, a nice eye with the triangle, and you want a nice sunburst if you can get it.
It's got it.
And so it's a nice coin for the type that it is. And so definitely something to look at if you have an opportunity. Then let's move into one of my favorite coins, actually, of the whole Greek period. It's going to be lot 31123. And these are Ptolemaic. They call it decadrams. I call them dodecadrams. Traditionally, that's what they were called. These are under the Ptolemies. These are one of the largest silver coins produced during the period that were actually in not circulation because these were really treasury coins, but they were mass produced. And so so it's probably one of the biggest issues that's not a medallion per se. They were actually made in a lot of mass production. Quite a few of them have this crack. And so you'll see the crack that goes from about, 10 o'clock down into the ear, and then about 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock on the reverse. It's very common to get that crack, probably in the die, or just split. But if you can get one without the crack, it's great, but they don't usually come that way. So it really isn't that unusual to get one with a crack. And so it doesn't scare me. It's not like it's going to break. And because a lot of them do have the crack, it's kind of expected. But if you don't know this series, you'd think, oh, it's cracked, I don't want it. But that's not the case with these. And this, you know, if I went back to like 95 to 2000, this was a $20,000 to $25,000 coin. In high grade, they're going for $50,000, $50,000 and up. And so without a crack. And so I would say this coin's going to probably settle out around 20 to 25, could go higher. But really interesting coin. She's herself is very interesting. So Bernice II, she was actually the queen of in North Africa of Kyrene, and then she was married off to her cousin, her half cousin actually, Ptolemy III of Ptolemy, which brought the Ptolemaic kingdom together through marriage. And so you know, it was, you know, it's why you get a lot of weird looking children from some of these lines. And
Reds.
Yeah, I mean, you know, talk to the British, you know, I think they had some issues.
Habsburgs? No, they don't know anything about that. So I have a question about this, because how typical is it for both the obverse and the reverse die to break in the same place?
Well, no, it's not.
This is on top of, it looks like both of them cracked on the same spot.
Well, it is the same spot, because it's the same spot if you turn it into the reverse. That's
what I'm saying. So this is both the obverse and the reverse die cracking.
Yeah, or it's the coin itself. It's in this case, you know, now I think about it, it's probably
so if it was the coin, it wouldn't be there on multiple issues. The fact that it's on multiple issues means it's got to be in the die.
But the crack does move. So honestly, sometimes the crack goes into the face. So so this is in the back of the head. That's actually a better spot. So it could be part of the coin production. I haven't studied.
Okay, that makes more sense then, because if it shows up in different parts of the design, it likely is the planchets.
It does.
And they were just using subpart, planchets.
Or the coin was so big that it just cracked over time,
or being struck with so much force that they cracked.
Yeah, force and maybe from the heat, and just because it's such a big silver coin. I mean, this thing weighs 51 grams. I mean, it's a big coin. It's much bigger than the decadrachm. So it's it's probably at least 10 grams heavier than the Decadrachm of Syracuse, somewhere in that range. And I've held these. They're hunkers of coins. They're fun to hold.
It's
they're
a
fun to
chunky coin.
It is. So, I mean, somebody maybe in the comments have a better idea on why it could have been from the cooling process of after this coin was heated up and just the force of crack, when they struck the coin. I don't know, but they do come cracked quite often. So
now, something I'd like you to notice, this is also an extremely rare offering.
It's a rare offering. I wouldn't say extreme. It might be extreme for stacks.
Hey.
So, but there was one that just came up, and I'm pretty sure that NAC just sold one. I saw one earlier this year. You see about, I would say you see between 2 and 3 a year. So, yeah, for stacks, it would be extremely rare offering for sure.
Well, it could be rare and just.
They are rare for sure, but I wouldn't say they never come up. They do come up.
They're not scarce. It's kind of like trying to find a key date coin. A 16D Mercury dime is the key date, right? It's only 264,000 of them made, but I'll guarantee it's easier to find than like a 1920s. It's just because it's the one people want.
Yep. So I mean, it's rare to find without a crack. I can say that. It's very rare.
Yeah, because you have to
crack.
Yeah.
So, and then they go for huge money. So, anyway, so that's the stack sale. Check it out if you have a chance. Then let's move on to another sale that's happening in New York on January 16th. Is the New York sale. And so, history of New York sale, it was a conglomerate of many different auction houses, including the Goldbergs. The Goldbergs are now out, and it's just left with Dmitry Markov and M&M Numismatics. Are the ones running this particular New York sale. This is their second year, I believe, doing it. And so they always have some interesting coins to check out. And so you'll find slab and unslab because they do both. And so the first coin would be lot 1030, and that's a Mende Tetradrachm. Very, very famous coin. Because you've got a drunken satyr drinking from a cantharos, which is a drinking cup, on the back of a donkey, drunk off his behind.
How do you know he's drunk? And he's not off his, he's on it.
Well, he's kind of laying on it, kind of like, I mean, satyrs are usually wasted anyway. So
okay. See, this is history I'm unaware of.
They're usually heading to a Mende to have their way with her. So, and then of course you have grapevines on the back. He was a follower of Dionysus. And so Dionysus, the god of wine. So it all kind of fits. I don't know why he's on a jackass, but hey,
because he's not quite wasted.
Yeah, maybe not. But so the city of Mende, which comes out of Macedonia, it's actually named after the plant that was made there called the Mythi plant. And it's a species of mint. And it's still sprouted in the area, actually. And Mende also had a ton of resources of silver and gold and lead mines that led to its rapid development in the area.
So that would be the flavor that the liqueur is named after, creme de menthe.
There you go. So this one's quite nice. Sometimes you get a satyr that the face isn't too nice on it. This one's pretty decent, not so charismatic, but sometimes they look really ugly. And so this one's quite all there.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail on this. This is just really well.
Yeah, I think 40,000 estimate is the retail price. Sometimes we talk about estimates being wholesale. That is not a wholesale price. So I would say that's
more. Minimum bid is 32,000.
Yeah,
so.
But I think retail is 40,000.
I think they're looking for a retail number as well.
I mean, I don't know what if their BP is 20 or 22.5%, you're talking, at 40,000, you're talking over 50. So, and that's what the coin is worth. And so, you have to know the market and know when something is wholesale and when something is retail. And so you can see that there's no minimum bid yet because you're already talking something close to retail at estimate. And that's why a lot of auction houses start out at low wholesale to draw interest, because it looks good and people get into a frenzy, and
sure, and the
eventually the price
drive
get back.
the price of the coin up, not
Right. So anyway, nice coin, probably one of the best in the sale as far as I can tell. Next coin, more of a common coin, is going to be Phraates the third. He is a Parthian king, and I really love this facing portrait of him. He's a pretty interesting guy. So this the Parthian kingdom was in Iran at the time, and the Parthians were very strong early on. And this is later when they started to weaken, and when Phraates came to the accession to the throne, he wasn't necessarily the supreme power that they were in the East at one time. And that's partly because of Armenia under Tigranes the Great, and in Pontus under his ally, Mithridates the Sixth. And so, and both Mithridates and Tigranes were fighting a war against the Roman Republic, and they wanted Phraates to join with them, but he remained passive and neutral. He became Switzerland, essentially, and kind of hung out and waited to see who he wanted to join with in the end. Later in around 57 BC, he did go to war, and he was murdered with his son with his one son, Orodes II, and later his other son was killed as well. And so interesting guy. The Parthian kingdom as a whole is very interesting. They were always kind of at war with the Romans at one point or another, not during this time period, but most of the Parthian coinage is very inexpensive to purchase. You can find most mint state coins of the Parthian kings for under $250.
There's a lot going on this coin.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But normally they're not facing like this. So this is an unusual type. And normally they're side profiled. But normally the reverses look like that, where he's holding a bow on the reverse of the coin, and there have the inscription around. And normally there's no inscription on the obverses of most Parthian kings coins.
So now you're going to make me ask, how do you feel about the front facing? Because it's always kind of creeped me out.
I love it. And I love the green deposits in his hair there from the earth. I think that's really cool. Somebody would say, oh, that's green disease. Well, it's not green disease. It's just oxide, because it's on a silver coin, not a bronze coin. So
yeah. So, I mean, to look at this, it almost looks like his eyes are closed, but then you see there's an eyeball.
Yeah, I mean, I think the dye work on this, for most, if you look at most Parthian coins, the dye work isn't that great. And so this dye work on this coin is pretty spectacular. Okay. If you look at Parthian coins as a whole, this is pretty damn nice. And that's what draw my attention to it. So let's move on to an inexpensive coin, but really cool coin. And that is number 1190. Not a pretty coin, but it's cool because it's an architectural type. And so this is under Macrianus, or they call him Macrianus Major. He was actually a Roman usurper. And then usurper means that he took control of a region without the okay from the Senate. And so he wasn't really emperor, but they would
just kind of declared himself such.
Yeah, exactly. He was one of Valerian's fiscal officers, or secretary of finance. And then after Valerian's capture by the Sasanian emperor, Shapur I, Valerian's son Gallienus became the sole emperor, but he was busy with his own stuff in the West, and so Macrianus grabbed the opportunity and made himself usurper at the time. And later, he was also assassinated, and Quietus, his son, and his same namesake, Macrianus Minor, were killed. And so, but what's really cool about this coin, so this coin was actually issued in the ancient city in which is now modern day Turkish city, so it's in Turkey. Iznik, I think is the way you pronounce it, is where it was minted. And they still today have the original walls. So the ancient city was surrounded on all sides by 5 kilometers, 3 miles of walls that were at its creation.
It's like an old world defense.
Were 10 meters or 33 feet high. And it also included over 100 towers in various locations.
Yeah.
And so some of those city walls have been broken through to put roads through in modern day. But here on the coin, you can see they've actually produced the walls of the city on the reverse of this coin.
That's cool.
It's a very, very cool coin. This is what I love about provincial coins, is they don't have to be really expensive to be completely rich in a ton of history. So, and that's going to bring us to our last coin, number 1191. This is Antinous, and he was what they call Hadrian's favorite, but really he was Hadrian's lover. And so he supposedly, Antinous was a shepherd, and that's why he's represented as a shepherd on the reverse here. And Antinous died, some say, in Egypt by a crocodile or a hippo. But he died very young, and Hadrian was pretty devastated, so he immediately deified him, created a ton of coinage, and a whole cult dedicated to Antinous. And so you can say that Hadrian's love for this boy extended his deification all the way till today, because we're still talking about him. So very, very cool coin, very popular. They often come worn. That you typically can get one that are high grade, but they're not easy to come by. They're mostly all provincial, and so a lot of the provincial coins were in circulation and were used quite often. And because they were bronze, for the same reason, so they were in circulation, which means that they were being used on a regular basis and don't always come high grade. So
now this is bronze.
This is bronze. Yeah.
Oh,
it's just it's down to its brass color.
Yeah, it almost seems to have a lot of nickel in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, this is a rare reverse type, and so that's why it's got the high price tag on it. Those typically seem to bring a lot higher value. You can find Antinous bronze coins, smaller denomination ones, much cheaper, and so they definitely are available out there. You just have to be on the watch. So that's going to bring us to our education, which isn't really an education, but I figured let's talk about what was the best of 2024, since it's appropriate, since we just are in the first day of 2025. And so
let's bring in a new year by the old year. Let's see. We want to go to slideshow. Winner.
So let's there we go. Actually, you want to go to the very first slide. You're on the last slide.
Oh, damn. Of course.
So we'll get a quick review all the way through the slideshow until we get to the very first one. There we go. You got a quick preview, guys. So best of 2024. So
as only the Ancient Coin podcast can bring it to you.
Unedited, uninterrupted.
Yes, that's good.
So let's go to the first slide. these are coins that I thought really stood out in 2024. There are probably much more, but we only have a short show here, and so we can't go through all of them. So at the beginning of 2024, in which always starts out with the Triton sale, which is going to be happening very soon again. This very rare, but what's funny is there's another Phraates or Nectanebo. Sorry, there's another Nectanebo coin coming up in this year's Triton sale, which is funny. So they had one last year, and they've got another one coming up this year.
Apparently, it worked out well for them last year.
So yeah, so this is the last pharaoh of the Egyptians before the Ptolemies took it over. Before Ptolemy the First took it over, and the pharaohs, the Egyptians, didn't issue coins. So this was actually one of the first coins that were ever issued by a pharaoh, and they were actually made for the Greek mercenaries. So they would pay them to help fight for them. And so it's the only ancient coin that I'm aware of that actually has a hieroglyphic on the reverse of the coin. And so the hieroglyphic here means good gold.
So that's not a strawberry, because that's what I see.
No, it's not a strawberry. It's an actual hieroglyphic, which means good gold.
Gold
and
is
so
good. This one looks like it's really good gold.
It is. It is. This one sold, I believe, for $200K hammer. So had a pedigree back to 1955. Really interesting coin. They're very sought after. They are extremely rare, but it's funny that another one's coming up year 2. So anyway,
extremely rare though.
Extremely rare. Go to the next slide. The famous Eidmar, but it's not the Eidmar you would think of. This, also showing up in that same Triton sale in January of 2024, was probably the finest Fourrée. And so we know this is a Fourrée because you see that hole there on the obverse. You can see the copper core coming through, which means this was a copper core with the silver wash. And so these were contemporary forgeries at the time. It is believed that Brutus or his moneyers at the time were actually trying to spread the silver thin, and it's possible that some Fourrées were actually struck with official dies at the time.
Well, that would explain the similarity to the actual coin.
There are a lot of Fourrées that are very barbarous, meaning that they don't look like any of the official ones, and so they were literally being faked at the time. Most Fourrées are contemporary fakes, meaning that they were made at the same time period, but made to look full silver, but were in reality not. And that's why a lot of coins ended up being test cut or had a banker's marks, because they were checking to make sure that they were silver all the way through, and not contemporary fakes trying to hide their copper center. This one actually probably the highest price ever paid for a Fourrée at $75,000 hammer. Fourrées back in the day when Eidmars used to be $50,000 and you could get a Fourrée for under $10,000. These days, Fourrées are a little harder to get at that level, but this one's pretty fantastic, I have to say. It was originally sold by Sternberg in 1985, so I had a little bit of a pedigree, but a really interesting coin, and for sure the finest of a Fourrée type. The next slide, we have really a fantastic Vespasian Aureus. This is most likely from the Bosco Reale hoard from 1895, which means that it would have been during the eruption of Pompeii, during the volcano eruption. The clay actually got seeped into the coins, and so you get this reddish color. And so that only happened from the eruption of the volcano Vesuvio at the time. And so they're very sought after for that reason, because you get the Pompeii and also the pedigree, obviously, as well. This was also sold by Ratto in 1952, and it sold for $130,000 hammer. Strong price, but fantastic coin on both sides. This also sold in that January 2024 sale, but a great coin, great coin. If we go on to the next slide. We talked, many of these coins we did talk about during the year when they were coming up. And so here's one that came up during the summer in CNG auction 126 in May. It's actually springtime, I guess, 2024. And this is was money before money became money. And this was a Cyprus from the Bronze Age, 1600 to 1000 BC. They call it an oxide because it looks like the shape of an ox hide if they were to carve it off. And so, and these were used, as treasury pieces essentially during the Bronze Age. And you can see how big it is. There's my foot next to it. So
yeah, but you shop in the kids section for your shoes.
So I knew who bought it, and so it happened to show up, and I was able to get a picture of it as it got unboxed. Now it's on a nice mount, and it's beautiful, but really heavy, really big. This one sold for $170,000. Huge.
Was this repaired on that one corner?
No.
That's just kind of it's corrosion.
Yeah, corrosion, or it may have had an attachment of some sort at the time.
Okay.
But definitely not damage.
Okay.
And so I believe there's a hoard of these in a museum in Greece somewhere. There's not a lot of them in private hands. I think this was the first or second time one had ever been offered in a complete version. There are fragments that are offered occasionally, but they don't come up very often. So very
I guess they are. It's hard to imagine that they survived in whole, but
yeah, I mean they are. I
not
mean, it's
rock. They
right.
look like they're rock, but they're not. They're metal.
I mean, they're solid copper, so I mean, it's
they're not going to break apart real easy.
No, not real easily. It's a hefty piece. There's no doubt about it. There's a couple other types of currency that kind of rival this, and the other one would be the Yap money, which is from a city or an island.
Yeah.
And those can be very, very massive as well. And then the Swedish plate money, which is something that's very similar as well. Some of the Swedish plate money that I believe the largest one is as big as a coffee table, and those aren't allowed to leave Sweden any longer. But they're massive. Really,
you can't get them in the carry-on anyway. So
no, you can't. No, you can't. So moving on to the next one. I love this piece, still love it. This is an ancient die, counterfeiter's die, probably produced in 3rd or 2nd century BC of an Athens tetradrachm. It brought 32,500 hammer. I thought that was pretty reasonable. I mean, expensive for a counterfeit die for sure, but to my knowledge, I've never seen one with an Athens tetradrachm come up before. So,
and a really good one too.
Yep. It had really beautiful, people ask like, well, why was the top so clean and perfect, but the rest wasn't? Well, they wanted to leave the incrustation so people would believe that it was real. So, because there might have been some doubt otherwise. And so it's good to see.
It looks a little too perfect.
So they obviously really cleaned well the reverse die of this, but they left the rest of it pretty much untouched for the most part, because that top would have also been covered in that same incrustation, and obviously that was cleaned off. So, but very, very cool piece.
That is cool.
Next slide, very, very cool coin. This was actually sold at Nomos auction 32 in June of 2024, and it was lot 494. This sold for 28,000 Swiss francs hammer. Very, very, very rare type. Phoenician of Artus. It's an unknown king, but here you have Bao swimming, and he's holding 2 dolphins.
Yeah, I was going to say he's got him by the tails.
He's got him by the tails. Yeah, and on the reverse you have a Phoenician galley ship, and underneath you have a swimming griffin. Didn't know griffins swam. But,
no, I didn't know they had fins.
But I guess anybody can, take their version
any way you want.
Yeah, and make the god to, the mystical creature.
They're a god, right?
What's that?
They're a god, right? You can do what you want with them.
Well, they're not really gods, but they're in a way they are. But
they're depicted as gods.
They're mythological creatures, basically, that represented specific gods and in
Right.
some cases. Just were there to harm, sometimes, these things they'd say, well, maybe it was a deformed humpback whale and some sort, and some seamen saw it and they decided to say, hey, there was this creature out there and he looked like this, and next thing you know, it ends up on a coin.
Yeah, next thing you know, you have the Loch Ness Monster.
You have the Loch Ness Monster. That's right. So very rare coin, very cool. One you would not expect to see. I've never seen that type before, so of course it drew my interest and why I put it as the greatest of 2024. And that's going to be true of the next coin, which I think is one I've never seen before. It's a coin of Kyrene, which I have seen before, but with the Sylphian plant, which was a plant used for medicine and other purposes, and it was grew all over the Kyrene coastline, and so they decided they thought it was extinct, but now they believe it's sort of a type of fennel plant. But what's really interesting here is I've never seen one with the gazelle on the obverse eating one of the leaves.
Yeah, and that gazelle is straight up on its hind legs doing it too.
And these things did grow tall, and so that makes sense. And so here, somebody, the artist, was just representing what they saw in real life. And on the reverse here, we have Zeus Ammon, which is basically Zeus Ammon means Zeus, and then you have Ammon, which is the Egyptian representation. So they're mixing the gods between Egypt and Greece together. And that represents the horn that you see around Zeus's head. You do get these on Lysimachus tetradrachms as well, where you get the horn on coins of Lysimachus, which is Alexander, being represented as Zeus Ammon, essentially. And so very, very cool coin. This sold in Nomos as well.
You said fennel, and honestly, that's about right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was a breed of fennel, and so they believe that that species might still exist somewhere. That I read somewhere where it may still be around, where they thought it was extinct. And this coin sold in June of 2024. Sold for 110,000 Swiss francs. I believe it, because it's one of those coins that a couple of billionaires would definitely fight over.
Yeah.
And this is one of those coins this coin will probably, Kyrene, these coins, they don't come in state. They come like this. These are the surfaces they typically come with. And so you won't get one that's mint state. And so to say again, would you want to only own mint state coins? Look, Star is deciding to be a star in the background here. You would never own this coin then. And that would be a travesty not to own an important coin like this because you decided to only collect mint state coins. So here's a perfect example of that. So if we move on to the next coin, fantastic Sestercius of Hadrian, and on the reverse, it actually says he's in Britain at the time, and so it says in the excerpts there you can see Britannicus, and so when Hadrian visited Britain, he visited the troops, and here he is speaking to the troops. There was a very famous Hadrian coin, Sestercius, that was one of the first, I think it was the first $1 million ancient coin ever to sell back in the early 2000s. And it had this exact same style type. And so this kind of rivals that one on in a lot of ways. So this one brought 600,000. A lot of buck for Sesterces.
Not surprisingly though.
But it's a fantastic coin.
It really is.
So stylistically on both sides, just fantastic coin in every way. This sold in NAC. It was part of the Cope collection that was put on by C&G, NAC, and NGSA. And so this sold in May of 2024.
And this coin really survived in a really just wonderful condition.
Yep. Go on to the next coin. We have
I know this guy.
Full silver Eidmar. This is now the most expensive Eidmar ever to sell in silver. This one brought 950,000 Swiss francs hammer, which with the juice is probably closer to $1.2 million. This one had everything: centering, quality pedigree. It goes back to it was ex Neville, 1922. Fantastic coin in every possible way. It doesn't have the typical die rust or the not die rust, but surface roughness that a lot of the coins from the 90s that came out have. So, and it has a fantastic pedigree. It's really a wonderful coin and probably worth every penny. It probably should have gone for more, but it didn't. And so my guess is if this coin came up again today, it would have gone for over $2 million. So, but anyway,
it's approaching the Aureus.
Yes. So if you go on to the next coin, another coin that sold during the same NAC sale in 2024, fantastic Syracuse Decadrachm of Kimon. You can see the signature fully KIMA on the dolphin. Really, it was part of the Kunstfreud sale from 74. The Kunstfreud sale was the sale that broke the bank or broke the market at the time. So in 74, this fantastic collection from Kunstfreud came up and record prices across the board, and it crashed the market. And all ancient coins went down after the Kunstfreud sale. And so everybody always thinks there's going to be another Kunstfreud coming up, and it hasn't happened yet. So, but a lot of collectors love owning coins from Kunstfreud for that reason. Famous sale, famous collection. This one brought 700,000 Swiss francs. This I would consider a mint state coin. This is what you'd have to pay for a decadrachm that's mint state that hardly ever come up. And so perfect on both sides, wonderful signature, great surfaces, both on the obverse and reverse. So you're approaching $1 million here. And so it's far less than the typical 50 to 80,000 for a really high grade decadrachm that would wow most people if they held it. So moving on, this is the famous Augustus Aureus, which they call the Heifer Aureus because it represents the bulls, which were the famous bulls statues produced during the Greek period that were then taken to Augustus's temple in Rome and put on display. I actually bought this for a client. We paid 600,000 hammer. Strong price, but fantastic and very rare coin. Has a pedigree back to 1949 and a very sought after, and they don't come up very often with that reverse type. So very, very popular. And then closing out the year, we have this fantastic Trajan Sestercius of the Circus Maximus. And this green patina is natural from thousands of years of production or being underground. And so this is a very desirable coin on both sides. It was part of the Peter Bowie collection that NAC just sold in auction 150 in December. So it just happened. It brought 140,000 Swiss francs. Really fantastic coin on both sides of a very, very famous reverse type. So, and that's going to bring us to, if we talk about the greatest, we got to talk about the most doofus. So let's go to our next slide. And let's go to Doofus.
Welcome to Doofus University.
Where you don't want to be a doofus, but if you are, don't worry, you can graduate later. So, and let's go to the first slide. And I believe some of these we did talk about throughout the year. This one, a Domitian Aureus, this sold in the Central States sale in May of 2024. It brought $36,000. That's all in, I believe. I believe they started, from what I remember. It's not a great coin by any means. Not even a nice coin. It's an okay coin. This coin, it brought 6,500 euros in 2015. So in 2015, it brought 6,500, which is about what it's worth. I'd say it's not worth more than 8,000 or 9,000 today, and it went for 4 times that. Wow. So way too much money for this coin. Definitely one of the greatest doofuses of the year. And then if we go to the next slide, we talked about this coin, Julius Caesar Aureus. Somebody decided to pay in November in the Dallas Heritage Sale in November 2024. They paid $65,000 for this Julius Caesar. This is no more. This is worth maybe $18,000 tops. It's not even that great of a coin, but it's still decent. It's a nice coin, but it's they're very common with the with this obverse type, and there was no reason to pay that kind of money for this coin. This is huge doofus, and the last huge doofus that I saw. And now you could say I'm picking on heritage, or you can say that if you get a high designated coin that's a popular type in a holder, give it to heritage because they're going to find you a doofus for a purchaser. And so kudos to them for creating these really strong prices on average coins. So because it probably does elevate the market as a whole, but there are two different markets going on. But we talked about this Lydian coin earlier in the show. This coin doesn't have a great sunburst on it. It brought $16,000.
See, that one looks more like a tumor.
Now, what's interesting about this coin is in 2017, it was a star coin. And in 2017, in heritage, this brought 19,000. So it actually sold for 4,000 less. So somebody, and what was really interesting, what I saw is if you, because it sold for 19,000 in 2017, they made the estimate in 2024 10 to 15,000. So the estimate was already set high because of the doofus mistake that was made in 2017. And so to protect the buyer, they obviously they have to set the estimate higher, right? But it sold for they still took a loss on the coin, and it still sold for too much. But again, there are much better coins than this. The one I showed you earlier that's coming up, I think, is a better coin than this.
Oh, by far.
And so there's no reason to pay that kind of money for this coin. They come up enough, and you can get one with a beautiful sunburst. Maybe it's much better in hand, but the sunburst isn't going to be any better. And so ultimately, this is a coin that you should be able to buy for under $6,000. So there was no reason to pay an extra $10,000 for it, in my opinion. So that's the best and the worst of 2024.
And we will have our first graduating class from Doofus University at some future date.
And I believe that, that I found that graphic there. If you search for them, they do have a website, and they do sell those T-shirts with that donkey on there. So
yes, they do.
So I want to give them
the jackasses, are they not?
They are. So if you want to buy one of those shirts, then go for it and give them some money. So
But
it's not hard to figure out.
Oh, yeah, not our bailiwick.
Yeah, just go and search Doofus University, and you can go and buy off their website. So my only pearl of wisdom now is just wishing everybody a wonderful 2025. It's been an interesting 2024. I think it's been educational for all of us here at the Ancient Coin Podcast.
Well, it's been a year of tremendous growth.
It has.
And
it has.
We've welcomed a whole new set of people to this, and we're going to continue to do more and make it more accessible for people, and try and make it more educational, more interesting.
Yeah, it says, guys, I was just talking to somebody earlier today, and I was talking about the fact that it's New Year's Day, and Mike and I are essentially working, but it doesn't feel like work because we're doing something we're passionate about, and I love giving back to the industry that's been so good to me and my family. Yes. And so it also is all of these episodes as I'm putting together, it refreshes my memory on things. And also I have to go and learn something that maybe I didn't know or I forgot. And so it helps me in my learning process as well as it helps you. And so we're learning together. And that's the beauty of this thing. And what I love about this show and about this community is it is growing, and it's growing at a pace with a younger crowd.
Yes.
And so that's also fantastic because
that's always good to see.
I've seen so many young under 20-year-olds, under 10-year-olds that watch the show and who are now into collecting ancients. We had tons of kids, younger kids, come into the shop this year looking for ancient coins and knew exactly what they were looking for. Yeah. And so that's
we're
really
talking
fantastic.
Little kids too.
Yeah, really little kids. And so it's so wonderful to give back. And so you guys give us exactly what we give you. So thank you.
A lot of joy. Thank you very much. So thank you to Aaron. Thank you to our staff at HJB who helped make this possible. And thank you to everybody who listened, because we really enjoy doing this. And if you keep listening, we're going to keep doing it.
We will. Well, and I'll be down at the fun show. I'm just walking it. I'll be down there Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday. And then I will obviously be at the New York International for that entire week. So if you end up coming by and seeing me around the hotel, so want to say hello, fist bump, or
asking for some swag.
No, I don't think I'll have any swag with me.
You don't have to have it. All you got to do is take email addresses.
That's true. I can do that. Or just email Mike. You don't even have to go.
No, they have to meet you.
Oh, well, they can always meet me. That's fine. But come up to the show. My dad will be there, obviously, during the show as well. So if you want to say hi to him, he'll probably have 100 Greatest books, the smaller versions there. That
smaller version is really nice.
If anybody wants one that's signed. Size. Yeah, if anybody wants one that's signed, it's probably a good opportunity to buy one. If you get there in time and there's some left, we'll be happy to provide one to you. So that's all I got for you. So happy 2024 past us, and happy 2025.
Yeah, happy 2025. I look forward to a year of a lot of learning, a lot of prosperity, and a lot of success. Yeah. 2024 was not bad to us. 2025 will probably be better.
Yeah.
So for everybody on the Ancient Coin Podcast, we will talk to you next time on episode 58. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast Discussion Group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.